Washington, D.C. He couldn't deal with the Confederacy wrapped around Washington, D.C. So he put Maryland under military rule for 4 years. There were so many Union soldiers stationed in the state of Maryland for 4 years that this little county, Harford County, I'm writing about, which is up in the corner, in the northeast corners of Maryland, right under the Susquehanna River, had 900 Union soldiers in it. It's just astonishing to me. And the railroad line from Boston and New York to Philadelphia ran right through Harford County, headed for Washington in the south, and so the troops were coming through Harford County, and people like Martha's brother and his militia friend John Wilkes Booth and all the rest of them who were in those militias would go out and burn the railroad bridges to try and stop the Union soldiers the troops from running through. That's what they did in the dark of night. So it was really alive still then, and I don't know what the feeling is now. Do you think? I don't think it's completely dead now. Sarah?
I'm just curious, as you're navigating between things you know to be true historically and then imagining a story, how did you navigate between those two things, and did you struggle with that?
With great terror. That's why in the beginning I only wrote it from Martha's point of view, and I just hinted around about what was going on between her brother Richard and her lover Nick. And I eventually had to face the fact that the editors who saw the first version said, we love it, but we can't figure out what's going on. I realized I had to go there and do Nick. Do Nick's point of view, and later do Richard, her brother's point of view, and just try to make sense out of it all. And that took more research. But I did finally get inspired and found something that I so had to tell that I then rewrote the entire book, every word of it, by 12, 13 different speakers in the first person, when it had been all third person in this point of view. I did it in 8 months. Just a burst, supernova burst, ecstatic energy, and then it was over. But that was tough, and I'm still scared about some things, that I've attributed to people. But I think I have evidence for everything.
Really?
Well, partly because the trial, when she murdered Nick, it was on the front page of the New York Times a couple of days later. And this we're talking rural Maryland, and it was on the front page of the New York Times. Young woman shoots her seducer, I think was the headline, something like that. And then they covered the trial. They had big reporters there taking down every word, and so did the Baltimore Sun, and so did the local paper, the Bel Air Aegis. Unfortunately, the courthouse burned down in the late 19th century after this, so I couldn't get the official trial records, but I had 3 good newspaper transcripts of her entire trial, word for word, and I lived with those with a magnifying glass. Because just studying for nuance, things people said, we'd get down to one word, I'd suddenly realize what it meant, what they were implying, and that would be a huge clue. And then I just took it and ran with it. Yes, Jennifer?
Is this a story you always knew was in your family, and you just sort of thought you might write about it one day, or is it something you discovered later?
Well, it depends on what you mean by always. The very last speaker in the book is Cornelia Nixon, great-granddaughter of George Andrew Carnes, telling the story partly of how my mother told me. She waited till I was 16, and then she told me. There's a cautionary tale. But she also... Well, you'll see when you read the book. What can happen if you're being cautious? And she knew I was a writer because I had already been doing attempts at writing by then, and my entire family wanted me to write this, and they eventually gave me everything they had. And I just had email from some of them today saying they found this artifact or so forth that I had mentioned in the book that I couldn't find, and it turns out they have it, and I'm going to get it when I'm there in November. The photo of her where somebody used a crayon to turn the lace on her dress red. This is a real photo of Martha Jane. It's on the cover of the book. And so the photo I first saw of her was an old sepia tone, but you can see where there's white lace, but somebody had taken a red crayon and colored it red, because she was a Scarlet Woman. And I couldn't find that lady. I wondered where it was, and I just got an email today from my cousin, also named Cornelia, as many people in the family are, for our great-grandmother, Georgie Mary Cornelia Hill from Baltimore. And she told me she has it. She has it. And they snatched it away from her when I so, what was the question? That was it. Yeah, well, the family buried it deep. I don't think my grandmother's generation knew this story at all. And it was during World War II, my Uncle Ralph, the family historian who was married to my aunt Cornelia, was serving overseas in the Army and had a book he found somewhere called 70 Years Ago